Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project. I'm your host, Vince Gethings from Tri-City Equity Group. And today on the show, we have Camilla Jeff. Camilla is the founder and CEO of Steady Stream Investments, a company focused on providing investment opportunities in large multifamily and senior housing communities. With over 18 years of experience in investing in real estate, she has done everything from live and flips, single family rentals, small multifamily, and now large multifamily and assisted living. She specializes in teaching first-time investors how to achieve passive income and diversify their portfolio. Camilla, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Vince. I'm excited to be here.
Yep, me too. Am I saying that right? Is it Camilla?
Camilla. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I might have said Camellia. I'm sorry. Camilla. Sorry about that. Well, welcome to the show. We just spent the last 10 minutes kind of getting to know each other and seeing where you're come from and what you've been and what you've got going on now. It's very exciting. And so let's just jump right into it. How did you get started and what got you on this path to the large multifamily? Because a lot of people, they think it's a huge step to get into the multifamily stuff, but everybody's got to start somewhere. So how did you start?
Yeah, well, so I started investing in real estate really out of necessity. My husband and I were living in a garage apartment, and in this garage apartment, it was really bad. It was not the best place to be living, but it was cheap, right? And we were young, newlyweds, both in school full time, both trying to, work full time and just make ends meet. And so we're living in this garage, and my landlady came over one day to collect the rent. And I knew she owned several rentals around the city. And I started talking to her. I said, you know what? I'm intrigued by what you're doing. I would like to understand how I could do this as well. And she said, well, you know what you could do is you could buy a house that has a basement apartment and then rent that out. And I thought, oh, that's a really interesting concept. And then she sat down with me. We kind of ran numbers and we did some figuring with it and figured out that actually, if we did this, we could live in a house of our own and pay less than what we were paying for this dingy garage apartment. So that's exactly what we did. We went out and we bought a house, owner occupied. So you get the best financing, you get the lowest down payment. We rented out the basement and we were paying $150 a month to live there. And the house had a pool and it was awesome. Yeah. And so that really whet my appetite for real estate. And I knew real estate was a great way to go. I knew at the time, I was 22 at the time, so pretty young, but still, trying to figure out real estate. Well, that put us on a journey for the next 15 years of doing what we call the live and flip method, where you buy a fixer-upper, you move in, again, best financing, lowest down payment, so lowest amount of cash, and you fix it up while you live there. And then once it's fixed up, you move out and you either rent it or sell it to make some money. So we did this like clockwork. Almost every 2 years, we would buy a new property. We'd move in, we'd live in the construction zone, live in the mess. We'd make it look pretty, and then we'd move out so someone else could live in the pretty house. And we did this for a long, long time. And, a little bit later, we got into small multifamilies. But I'd always had buy an apartment complex on my vision board because I thought, if I could just get to the point where we could buy an apartment complex, there's so many renters that would be paying the mortgage. It would just be one place. I wouldn't have to be nearly as going crazy because we were classic DIYers, everything ourselves. We did all the construction. We did all the lawn mowing. We fixed all the toilets, and it was us. And I thought, well, if I can get an apartment complex, maybe it wouldn't have to be us doing all this work and effort and time and putting into our investing. And so I started looking at how to buy an apartment complex. And unfortunately, they costed millions of dollars, and I didn't have millions of dollars in my bank account. So I was frustrated. I'm like, well, there's no way. There's no way we're ever going to be able to afford to buy our own apartment complex, because I had some limiting beliefs there. Well, I started studying it even more and realized that actually most people that purchase apartment complexes purchase it as a group. They like just put a group of people together, and then within the group, there's enough money, time, resources, and expertise in order to purchase an apartment complex. So that's where I got excited. I thought, wow, this is super cool. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I can just invest my money into this, and I actually don't have to be the one that goes and finds it and manages it and does all the things that I was doing before. And that was a light bulb moment for me because um, the returns for just investing my money were good, if almost better than the majority of my single family rentals that I did. And so I'd spent so much time and effort in the single family rentals when I could have been investing in these group investments, or, syndications is another word for them, as a passive investor, and not had to go through all of that pain.
Wow. We share very similar paths here. So we'll get right into this. So the live and flip method, that's exactly how I started too. I have so I'm actually 2 days left of active duty military left, but so I have the VA home loan, but I did the same thing. We did the live and flip. I did zero down, found the crappiest house that still passed the VA inspection, which is like the FHA inspections, same thing. And then live in, flip it, and do that thing. And we did that, and that's how I got started. And then I used that capital to buy the small multifamilies. Realized that I'd have to buy a ton of duplexes in order to reach my financial freedom number, and more duplexes than my town even had to offer if I bought all of them. And I was like, all right, there's got to be a better way. And boom, large multifamily. Let's buy 50 doors under one roof instead of 30. So that is awesome. That's exactly how we got started in my family as well. But one of the important things that you mentioned early on is this landlady that you had. Most people would never ask, just even that first ask, like, how are you doing this? And, are you willing to teach me? There's so many people that go out there like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. But you were in that you saw the opportunity, like, she's doing it, and she doesn't have any, skills that I don't have or can't learn. And you just asked your way to success. And that's huge. Since most people will never get the courage, or whatever you want to call it, to just ask that first person, how are you doing this? Can you show me how? And, 18 years later, you're a rock star, and you're crushing it. So that is huge. That's that first, to me, from that story, was like that first step was you just asked somebody that was doing it, and they spared some time for you, and you got in it. So that is huge. Another thing you mentioned is having vision boards. Is that something you always had? Have you always done kind of the vision board and kind of manifesting type thing, or is that something you've acquired, down as you started doing this thing?
I mean, it's been off and on throughout my journey, but it definitely was. I do vision boards, and now I try to do them on a yearly basis. I even do them with my kids. We all sit down together, and we make the kids make their own vision boards too, and we craft it, and and then they put it up in their rooms, and it's pretty inspirational thing to do, to manifest what you think you're going to be able to do. In a year. And I do things too, like not just the vision board, but I will write down dreams that I have as if I've already achieved them. Right. So I will write in a journal, I have $1 million, or I have, 4 vacation homes, things like that. And it's really interesting psychological trick in your brain. Like, you're talking about as if you already have it. So your brain is like, oh, okay, I need to figure out a way to get this. And it's just a really cool positive mentality trick that you can use. Instead of I want 4 vacation homes, you change it to just I have it. And then your brain's like, oh yeah, you're going to have that. And it will help you figure out a way to have that.
Yeah. And to the second point, it shatters those limiting beliefs that people normally have, especially if they don't come from this type of lifestyle growing up. People have these kind of limiting beliefs of like, oh, I'll never be able to have 4 vacation homes, or I'll never be able to send my kids to, that school or something like that, whatever it is, or, give away whatever, $50,000 to charity per year, whatever that why is. People have these limiting beliefs, and that trick that you said, there's a lot of books. I think Think and Grow Rich is the first one that I've read that kind of gets you thinking like that, as writing down your goals and your dreams as if you already have achieved them daily, and vision boards, stuff like that. And it is extremely powerful. I don't know how to explain it. It's, again, like you said, it's a mental trick that somehow how our brains are wired, it works, and it gets you thinking, and keeps that stuff top of mind, and gets your brain solving problems. Because if you say, and there was somebody else that had a book about this too, it's like as soon as you say you can't do something, your brain shuts off. Like it stops putting energy toward that task of solving that problem. Your brain's there to solve problems. And as soon as you say, well, I can't do it, it's like, fine, okay, I'm going to redirect resources to something else because we've already closed that door. Let me clip that, that neuron off and move on. And that's essentially kind of, I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I'm not a neurosurgeon, but that's essentially what the books I've read is kind of saying what happens. But as soon as you start doing the vision boards and manifesting and writing down, journaling, and doing the scribing thing, as if you've already achieved these things, your brain just clicks in a gear of like, okay, I got to solve this problem. That's why I'm here. And amazing things happen. Even since I started, I've only been doing it for like, I don't know, 5 years. And even in the last 5 years, like I try to tell people like where I was 5 years ago, where I'm at now. They're like, you must be a genius. You're like Elon Musk. I'm like, no, I literally dropped out of high school. I have a GED and I joined the military because I had nothing else to do. And like, I don't possess any special, ability that nobody else has. I just focused the energy to those things you have. So I just I want to take a moment to stop on that, because a lot of people kind of like, oh, that's just like, guru stuff or whatever. As I don't know, you have a fad type stuff. And like, it's not, it's literally life-changing habits to have. But anyway, that's exciting. Nothing to do with real estate, but very fun. So what is your why? You mentioned you have some kids, stuff like that. It's usually people's why. So what is your why to this whole thing? Why do this? Why choose this lifestyle of very exciting, sometimes very stressful, real estate investing, than just taking the safe route of clocking in, doing a W-2?
My why, I have 2 whys that are very strong. So why number 1 is I want to be a force for good in this world and create impact in the affordable housing crisis, right? So what's the best way to do that? It's not donating to governments to be able to do it, right? Government is failing. They're failing at their affordable housing initiatives, and the crisis just continues to grow, especially this year, right? With inflation increasing, price of rent, like price of everything is going up, right? And so I think that those of us in the capital world can solve this problem much better than those who are in the government world. And so that's part of my why. My second why is definitely focused on family. I have very big dreams. So as a parent, so I have 5 children, right?
Wow.
And as a parent, you look at your children, and every single parent that I know looks at their children is like, man, I want you to achieve any dream that you want, right? We tell our kids this. We tell our kids, you can achieve whatever you want. But I have a question. I think as a parent, you need to ask yourself, if you believe that, and I know you do, if you are not achieving your own dreams and goals and setting big dreams and goals and being the example to your children, how will they ever know that they can achieve something great, right? If you're not walking the walk before them. And so that's one of my huge whys, is that I'm reaching for really big dreams and really big goals, because I want my children to know that they can achieve whatever they put their mind to and whatever they want to do. And it's not just words. They're watching their mother do it. And that's very powerful why for me too.
Absolutely. And those limiting beliefs, where do you think people get limiting beliefs from? It's mainly I know for mine, it was 100% from my parents. So to see you shatter, all the boundaries, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to get it, and having 5 children watch you do that, they're not going to have the same limiting beliefs that, you may have grown up with, and those obstacles that you had to get over mentally, because their perspective or their lens of the world is going to be way different than what yours was at that same age. So that's huge. That's a really strong line. I love it.
Yeah. And it's not to say that, they're going to be set up for life and that, I mean, I'm a parent, I make mistakes too. They're going to be in therapy about something that I've done. Right. But just to, just this whole, the vision and the dreams and the, reaching for big things. I really believe in that, and to do it in a kind and generous and loving way too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important part of growth to me.
Awesome. It's deep stuff. Well, let's focus on redirect here to maybe some real estate stuff. So you had you're doing the live-in thing, and then that's something a lot of people can really grasp their head around, is doing the live-in flips or the burst strategy, or even buying some small multifamilies. The step that people, 'cause that's the easy stuff. You just put 20% down, you get a house, right? It's as easy as that until you're debt to
or 5% if you're like moving in yourself, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So until your debt to income, reaches 80% or whatever it is, like what happened to me. I had 20 units and I was like, oh, I'm crushing it, blah, blah, blah. And then I went to go get a car, and they're like, your debt to income is like 85%. What are you doing? And I was like, they didn't tell me about this. So I had to, learn how to be a real investor at that point. And restructure everything. So at that point of going from the small multifamilies to that first large deal, let's talk about that jumping off point. What were some of the obstacles you faced? How'd you overcome them? Tell us about that first deal of going from the small multifamilies to the big multifamilies.
Yeah. So one of the obstacles I faced was it was an entirely different language. So in single family investing, there's you evaluate a property and it's fairly simple. It's a fairly simple evaluation process. In large multifamily, it gets a lot more complex in the underwriting and the financial analysis. So that was obstacle number one for me. Was I was looking at these large deals and from a passive investor perspective, because remember, that's what I did first, as I invested passively first into these deals. And so I'm trying to understand, well, what are all the different numbers, right? Equity multiple, what does that mean? What does the IRR mean? I understood average annual return. I understood cash on cash, because that's numbers that I used in my single family investing, but I didn't use equity multiple, and I didn't use IRR in my in single family investing. So just understanding the numbers and getting educated, that was hurdle number one. Hurdle number two is how to find these investment opportunities, because they're not actively advertised. Well, some are, I guess some are, and some are not. Those that are actively advertised are for accredited investors only. And an accredited investor is someone who has 1 million net worth, or they have 200,000 personally yearly income, or 300,000 jointly with a spouse. And they've been making that income for 2 years and will believe they'll make it for another 2 years. Well, I didn't fall in any of those categories, right? I was not a millionaire. I didn't have that large of an income at the time when we were deciding to invest in large multifamily. So instead, I needed to find someone who would allow a sophisticated investor, who's someone who doesn't quite meet that net worth or the income requirements, but they have sufficient experience and a relationship with one of the members of the general partnership team. So I needed to find something like that. Well, how do you find that? I started attending meetups, and I started searching for multifamily meetups in my area. and started going to those. I started networking. I started talking to people who were in the industry doing it. And through that, I found the first investment opportunity. That I was a guy I'd been networking with for a while. He was working on a deal, and then he brought it to me. He's like, okay, here's the deal. And here's the information about it. What do you think? And I was like, yeah, I don't know, because I didn't feel like I knew enough yet to be able to invest. But after you know after doing that, I kind of had to just say, you know what, Camilla, this is the right path. This is an amazing opportunity. Like, the returns on it are great, and it's a passive investment. Like, you're going to put your money in there and your money's going to work hard for you. And so, hurdle number 4 for me was just having to get over the anxiety of letting go control, because I had control of all my investments, of every single detail of all my investments up until that point. But as a passive investor, you give up control. You give it up to the experts. And some see that as a negative and some see that as a positive. So it could be negative if you're used to having control, which is what it was for me. But at the exact same time, it was a positive because, oh my gosh, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do the work. I can just spend more time with my family and more time pursuing other passions and interests. And I don't have to do any of this work. I can just sit back, I can get my paycheck, and I can get the monthly updates, and hey, we're great. And so those are kind of some of the things that I went through as I was, making my first passive investment.
Um, Outstanding. And one of the comments I have on that, and as we go through like kind of there's always like an education piece with finding investors, trying to get them into their first passive investment. And one of the points that outside of the financials is the leverage. Yes, the general partners are looking for some passive investors to bring in and bring some of the equity to help take down a bigger deal. But the passive investors are leveraging just as much the general partners as well. They're leveraging their time, they're leveraging their experience, they're leveraging their connections. They're with brokers or bankers or property managers and all the vendors. They're leveraging all of that. And to your point, when you have a passive investor, the biggest thing they're leveraging is time. You either have time or money. So you're getting usually most of these deals, the lion's share of the returns, sometimes 60, 70, 80% of the returns, but you're gaining all of your time. And to me, that's huge. And that's, I tell, kind of everybody, I'm a general partner now in my team. And I love doing it, but I don't want to do this forever. My career path is very laser focused on being a career LP. And I am going to do as many of these deals as I can and transactions as I can to keep building up that whatever you want to call it, that nut or something, to where I can be a career LP. Because I've done nine deals now, and I want to be an LP. Like, it's as a general partner, I'm the asset manager, I'm the operator, so I'm the one that's kind of doing everything. And it's again, it's fun, it's exciting, it's solving problems, it's making a bunch of money for me and my family and my investors. But and I'm writing those checks every month, or set up those distributions. Like that's where I want to be. Whatever 5 years, I'm going to be a career LP, and I will just pick the good operators, pick the good general partners, and make a habit of maybe getting into like for me it's one a quarter. That's going to be that is my goal, is one deal per quarter. And it's much easier as an LP because they don't have to find the deal. They can pick 3 or 4 operators and deploy some capital once a quarter, and get that kind of conveyor belt lined up. And then as those deals start coming around and selling off, take some winnings and throw it back into the next deal. That's my path, and I've been investing quite a while, and that's the best strategy I've found as far as like the stress versus reward, or all that. I haven't found a better strategy than being a career LP.
Yeah, I agree. It's a powerful investment method. And in fact, I created a video and sent it out to my group the other day that was like a 10-year plan, right? So as an LP, here's your 10-year plan. You start off in year one. It's not that exciting, right? If you do one investment in year one, but if you continue to invest at least once every year for 10 years, you will be very surprised where you'll be in that 10-year time frame.
Especially when you start hitting that hockey stick around like year 4 and 5, when those
Exactly.
first deals start coming full cycle.
Selling and
Yep. And then it's just like, holy smokes, this is a real thing. And then you start hitting that power of compounding I've seen it. I've seen the light, and I'm laser focused on getting there. So good stuff. What has been the biggest mistake you've made since starting with the multifamily? And what'd you learn from it?
Since starting with multifamily?
Well, I guess let's go both. Let's do general and then specifically the large multifamily.
Okay. So I think biggest mistake I made with the single family was I fell into the idea that debt was bad, that all debt was bad. Every kind of debt was bad. And so, by this time, I think we had 8 different single family homes. And I just kept hearing this over and over on the radio from a financial guru. And I was like, man, maybe I'm doing this wrong. Am I doing this wrong? Is this wrong? And, I'd hear people, yell, we're debt free. And I was like, that's so exciting. Like, how cool is that to not have any debt, not owe anybody anything? And I fell into it. And I was a little bit confused, right? Because my rental properties didn't feel like bad debt. It didn't feel like that was bad. But the guru even kept saying over and over, even rental properties, you pay for cash, you pay for them in cash. And I was like, well, okay, maybe we should do this. And we did it. We sold our properties so we could yell debt free and now yell, I'm an idiot.
Did you go on the show and say I'm debt free?
Did not go on the show. No. Just kind of did it on our own. Right. And it was an exciting moment. But now I'm like, I'm an idiot because those properties today would be worth several $1 million in my portfolio. Right. So here's the thing. That's the mistake I learned, that there's a difference between consumer debt, which is, car loans, credit cards, student loans, all boat loans, all those things, even fashion loans. People get loans for like top fashion. and then there's debt that you leverage for investing. And the interesting thing is when I went through my MBA, I was in the corporate finance class, and we learned that a company that is run on cash only, that has no leverage, is a poorly run company. It is not going to stay in business very long. And it's going to have all sorts of challenges and problems based on that fact alone. And I was like, okay, yes, I was an idiot. Let's get back in the game and let's leverage what we can to invest. And I brought that over, into the large multifamily mindset. And it's just incredible, the amount of leverage that you can get from, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and the loans that you can get to really boost your returns, right? Because if we just got a loan that was only 50% and then we raised the other 50% of the money from passive investors, the returns for passive investors are going to be diluted, and it's not going to be a great deal for them. But if we do like a loan at between 70 to 75%, then that really boosts investor returns, right? So you think because if you put in 50% of it, you're going to get the same amount back as if you put in only 30%. And so your cash on cash returns just go up really high. So that was probably my biggest mistake, was selling those properties, and not rolling it into some other investment either. It was just selling to be out of debt. And that's what we did.
Got it. So the difference between good debt and bad debt. And I have a very similar path with that as well. I listened to Dave and Susie, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And then, the exact same thought process in similar
Yeah.
path there,
And
but it's
and they have some really great concepts, right? So I love that they are helping people get out of debt and helping people to get their financial lives around. I just think that they're good for the 101 class, but when you're ready for the 201, the 301, the 401 class,
yep.
you have to have a different approach, completely different approach when it comes to investing.
Absolutely. And to put in like somebody says, like, 4% non-recourse, 75% LTV, I'm like, oh my God, where do I sign up? Like, let's do this thing. Right. And,
Yeah.
yeah. And to the point of like the lenders, like, and I try to tell people this, like, I can get a $5 million loan, non-recourse, way easier than I can get a
Yeah.
car loan. And
Yeah.
like telling people like you're crazy, and they're like, I swear to God, I can get like, it's so much easier because the banks know it's a business. You have the business plan.
Yeah.
It's secured by a real asset that's producing cash flow, and the funding that I can get on a large multifamily property, just the floodgates get opened up when you find a good asset, to where if you're
Yeah.
personally guaranteeing everything, it's really going to stunt your growth as an investor. So
Yeah.
yeah, it took me a
So
few years to figure that
we just
out, but
bought Yeah, we just bought our first vacation home, right?
mhm,
And I felt like I was birthing a baby to get the thing,
yeah,
you get lending on it. It was ridiculous, the
yep,
amount of paperwork and hoops and all these things we had to jump through to get this property.
yep,
I'm like, man, it is so much easier to get a multi-million dollar loan than it is to get
yeah,
this like $500,000 loan.
yeah, exactly. And it's and I had the similar thing. I was moving from Hawaii to Michigan, and we were buying our house here. And I had like the first two banks deny me, and I'm like, that's impossible. Like, you did you run the wrong social or something? And they were just like, no, you're the whole DTI thing. And I'm like, my DTI is fine. And they're like, well, they wouldn't accept any of the income from the syndications and all this stuff. And I was like, this
Uh,
is insane. Like, um, so I had to find somebody that understood, like, a real estate professional's taxes.
right.
And
Yeah.
they're like, you had $500,000 in losses last year. I'm like, yeah, because of cost segregation and bonus depreciation. Like, that's the point. Like, that was entirely the point of that. They're like, well, our underwriter doesn't know what to do. I'm like, well, we need to find a new underwriter. So eventually I found a third one was understood a real estate professional's, PFS and taxes, and there was no problem after
Mhm.
that. But I couldn't believe the exact same thing. I was like, this is insane. Where we can go to any deal we have, and it's never even a thought that we're not going to get the debt for it, whenever we get a large multifamily
Yeah.
asset under contract. But just two completely different worlds, and I'm glad I kind of opened the curtain up at some point and get to see this whole new world of financial institutions and stuff like that, and how things get done on these bigger assets. Um, well, we're about running out of time here, so we can probably do one more question and then roll into the fire round. So last question: what advice would you have for the 20-year-old Camilla? Listen to this, about just getting started, about what to do at that age.
Yeah. So I still think house hacking is a fantastic way for a young person to start. But I'll tell you this: I had a 23-year-old investor contact me, and we had such a great conversation. And I was talking to him, and he's like, he's a software engineer. He's making a really good income. He just graduated with his bachelor's degree, so he's making great money as a software engineer. And he's like, Camilla, is this for me? Is passive investing in multifamily for me, or is it just for old people? And I had to laugh, and I was like, you know what? I'm so excited that we are talking right now, because if you start passive investing at age 23, I mean, you're going to retire before you're 30. It's for sure. If you keep it up and you keep investing passively, that there's going to be no question that you'll be able to retire at the age of 30 if you want to, right? If you
Mhm.
don't want to, fine. You keep going and enjoy, being a software developer and do that. But it was so exciting to talk to him, because he was like, okay, yeah, I want to do it. I want to do it. He's like, because I don't really want to, I still want to hang out and with my friends and stuff. And I'm still like, and I'm probably going to go get my master's degree. So I've got a busy life and I don't have time to really do my own investing. So I think this would be awesome. I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. And you should get all of your other developer friends and we should all have a conversation because it's a powerful way to invest, even for young people right out of college. If you're in that income bracket where you're making, six figures right out of college, which most developers do, then you can easily live off of 50 and invest another 50 and you're going to be just fine.
Absolutely. And especially if the option is like, well, I'm going to go buy this, the opportunity cost is like, I'm going to go buy this, rundown, 3-1 or something like that down the street for 40 grand cash. Like the problems and stress that one house is going to give you, yeah, sure, you'll have full control of it versus, parking it into a syndication or something like that. You'll make more money and it'll be so much less stressful than that rundown, single family, turnkey or whatever you want to call it. And like, oh, I'm going to buy one and then buy the other one. You'll have one boiler go up, or not boiler, a water heater go out, and that's your whole cash flow for the whole year in that one house. And like, well, I just worked the last 8 months for nothing. I was down in crawl spaces, up on roofs, whatever. And sure, I'm learning the trade, but I've been there, done that, and I'm so glad I don't have to do it. But yeah, that was awesome advice. All right into the fire round. Okay, so what is the best book recommendation you have other than Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Other than Rich Dad Poor Dad, is that because everybody says Rich Dad Poor Dad?
A lot of people do. We had to switch it.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, for me, it's the one I read last, and it's this one called the Charge by Brendan Burchard. And it's all about, 10 human drives that make you feel alive. So if you want to feel more alive in your life, there's 10 things that he says that you can focus on. And he gives you like very specific examples about how to create more energy in your life, how to create more sense of belonging, more sense of purpose, contentment and contribution. And it's really cool, really good book for anyone. It's not real estate specific. It's just one about how to live more charged life and be more present.
Got it. I love it. And I read he has his first book was like something about habits, right? His first.
Yeah. Yeah. He has got a great one. High Performance Habits.
Yeah. High Performance Habits. And he has like a journal planner. I use his journal planner. Good stuff. Okay, great. What is your superpower?
My superpower is living just barely outside my comfort zone at all times. And I say just barely because comfort zone's an interesting thing. We all have a comfort zone. And I think, well, for me anyway, if I tried to live too far out of it, it didn't work. And life got crazy and I would burn out and I would get to a point where I just couldn't function anymore. But if I can live just barely outside my comfort zone, just 1% outside my comfort zone, then that comfort zone grows and becomes comfortable, right? So that little step that I take outside of my comfort zone soon becomes comfortable. And then I take another step and then I take another step. And so, I don't want anyone to look at me and think, oh my gosh, she's had massive success, because I haven't. I've had little successes for a long time. And the little successes for a long time, they add up to look like massive success, because it's not like I just barely exploded onto this multifamily scene and got lucky and got all these things. I've been living outside my comfort zone for a very long time. And it's helped me to get to where I am today.
Good stuff. And I don't know if I haven't read that book you just had. But, in my leadership courses I've taken throughout my career, we talk about that as well, especially, everybody has their own disposition and kind of personality, but leadership doesn't care, right? If you have to get out of your comfort zone. If you need to lead people, you have to adapt to them. So kind of the exercise that we were taught is like, okay, you have your comfort zone or your, where you pull your energy from, but then, leadership is going to make you kind of get outside of that, do the job. But before you burn out, you have to come back to kind of that, like, whatever homeostasis state to recharge, relax, and get ready for that next bout out or that next charge out. into the field there. And that's kind of very good because, like you said, most people just try to live so far out their comfort zone and they just go hard all the time and they end up burning out. So you have to have that time to like, okay, I've adapted so much that it's burning me out. I got to come back, regroup, pull some energy, and then I can go out again. So very good advice there. What is the biggest lesson we've learned over your career? I think we already talked about that. That was the good debt, bad debt. Do you have another one?
I have a general one, right? So just the biggest lesson is that everything is figure outable. I don't think that's a real word, figure outable, but I like to say that because, sometimes often I guess back to that moment when I asked my landlady, tell me about what you're doing, right? Because I didn't look at her and say, oh, well, she's done it, but I could never do it. Right. I looked at her and said, I want to figure out how to get to where she is. And everything in life is figure outable, right? You think you talk to any person who's had success in life and really their superpower is just figuring things out, just navigating like, oh, this door closed. Okay, now I'll go try this door, or, and they just never gave up and they have persistence. And then the other thing is that you're never too old to chase a dream. So we talked about the young people investing passively, but even when you're, in your 40s or 50s or 60s or, 70s, you're never too old to go after and chase dreams. Like I hate the saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks, because you can, and you absolutely can learn new tricks as you grow. We are evolving creatures, and that's part of our human nature, is that we evolve and we grow and we have the ability to grow over time. So those are kind of two big lessons for me.
That wraps up the show. Any last words for our listeners, and how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, camillajeffs.com, and I have a bunch of tools and things there that you can download. But also you can just find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, or you can follow me on Instagram. I'm the Introverted Investor on Instagram.
Love it. All right. Well, thanks for joining our show, and we'll look out for big things coming from Steady Stream Investments. All right,
Thanks so much, Vince.